All right, it's Sports Bit. Betting Insight today. Paulie and Teddy. Friday, March 11th. Play of the day coming up. We look to finish out the week with a perfect record. Deep dive today will be NFL free agency. 4 huge games and big game breakdown. And we start with all the bad beats and the wrong sides. Teddy, what a day it was yesterday with all the action and the great finishes.
That's what you expect, man. I mean, look, here in Vegas, the game started at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they're going pretty much up until midnight. So you've got 15 hours of just wild action. And it goes, all day Thursday like this, all day Friday like this. And, of course, we all know what next week's going to be like. But, insanity yesterday on a number of different ball games and a number of different finishes with some of the worst beats you'll ever see. And when you're on the right side of them, or at least one of them, we'll talk about this one in just a minute, nothing but smiles the next morning.
All right, let's start with the wild finish with Oklahoma and Iowa State. This is a game that treated your pocket well.
It sure did. Look, this was one of those games. Oklahoma led by margin throughout the second half. And Iowa State, they had chance after chance to cut the lead, and they just kept missing shots. They had a chance to cut the lead to 1 in the final minute, but missed a shot. So the Sooners are up 8, time's winding down. They miss a couple of free throws. They get the offensive rebound. Buddy Hield do it. He was unbelievable in that ballgame. But instead of a foul getting called, it ends up being a turnover with like 2 seconds left. Deontay Burton gets the ball, dribbles. He jacks up a prayer as the clock goes to zeros. Nothing but net. Sooners win by 3, not 6. And of course, that was a game. There was a ton of Oklahoma money. That was bet up from 3 to 4.5. So good result for the house. Good result for my pocket. Was not a right side by any stretch of the imagination. Just one of a number of really tough beats. And of course, I got to give the credit for the cover in that game to the guys that chose to guard Hield when he was just trying to dribble out the clock. Thank you. Oh, you guys won. Iowa State. Mwah.
Another epic choke job in the ACC. Duke up 67-48 with 11 minutes left against Notre Dame. 1 field goal the rest of the way. 67-62 with 3:40 left in regulation. This team ran out of gas. Notre Dame all the way back with the outright win in overtime.
Yeah. For our play of the days, man, our sweet spot is when we're down 16 points. We had one yesterday with obviously Notre Dame getting the money. The one the day before with Georgia Tech. Getting the money, that's maybe the sweet spot. But, from that 11-minute mark to the end of the game, that was probably the worst 16 minutes of basketball I've seen Duke play all year. We talked about how gassed they were going to be, and they were just awful. But look at Coach K smiling. I don't think he's too upset about this. Tough beat for the bookmakers, that being said. That total got steamed all the way up from 150.5 to 156.5. And it was sitting at 140 at the end of regulation. 84-79 overtime final. All those over tickets cashed.
Yep. How about the Pac-12 to start the day here in Vegas at noon Pacific? Washington catching 8. They're down 6 with 12 seconds left. I can't believe it. They didn't foul. And then Oregon pulls back and doesn't lay it in. They run out the clock. They win by 6. I cannot believe, considering you collect the jerseys if they lose, season over, Washington didn't foul in that spot.
It was a really bizarre sequence, but again, if you had a Huskies +8 ticket in your pocket, or even a +7.5 ticket in your pocket, that was a wonderful result. How about this one? The Northwestern Michigan total, gets bet up from 132 to 134.5. They're at 120 in regulation. Overtime. All those over tickets cash in that one as well. That's a bad result for the house.
Also in the Big Ten, Garner hits a 3 for Penn State with 8 seconds left. Puts it on 4. Ohio State was laying 6, so you lose there. Another wild finish as well in that one.
Yeah, the big day for the Dogs in the Big Ten.
Yes.
Dogs catching all 4 of those tickets. What about Colorado?
Oh!
They're down 33-14 early. Looks like the game's over. They're down 17.5. The game's over. They're down 12, 15 points the whole second half. The game's over. They're down 10 with just over a minute to play. But all of a sudden, they get hot in that final minute, and Gabe York, 77% free throw shooter, missed not 1, but 2 free throws for hitting the last 2. That line was, Colorado was the dog from 4.5 to 6 points. They lose by only 4. Buffaloes get the money. Good result for the house in that one.
Yep, some wrong sides, bad bets. How about these two big favorites? Iowa laying 10.5. A total no-show against Illinois. They were down 8 late. They had to rally just to tie the game, and then Illinois wins by 2. Vandy laying 12 against Tennessee. A horrific loss. They could be out of the tournament now as a result, and a 2-team money line parlay with Tennessee and Illinois payback 39-1.
Yeah. Plus 600, plus 475. 39-1. Better than 39-1, in fact. And again, these are the type of parlays that I have no problem recommending. You want to bet dogs on the money line to try to get your scores? That's a 2-teamer paying 39-1. And we've had cashes like this all week long, Paul. You want to try to hit a 10-teamer, knock yourself out. A 2-teamer on the money line to get a close to 40-1 payday makes a lot of sense to me. Where else are we going to? We got to talk about the Big 12. I mean, the Big 12 line moves were spot on. Baylor took a ton of money. Right side winner. Kansas took a ton of money. Right side winner. West Virginia took a ton of money. Right side winner. Oklahoma also took money, and they certainly were in the wrong side. So the moves end up going 3-1 in the Big 12. But what about the Pac-12 right here in Vegas, Paulie?
Well, it was all these Arizona fans come in. They take over the MGM. You had a great finish there as it came down to the first 3 games. Came down to the final possession as far as ATS, and that place is going to be rocking later today for those 2 semifinal matchups. I can't wait, especially for Arizona and Oregon, which we're going to preview in Big Game Friday coming up. A fresh take and a little bit of get off my lawn time. Oh, here we go with the old guys again back in my day. What do you have, Teddy?
Oh, my goodness. And, this has kind of been an ongoing theme here on SportsBit. I'm an old guy now. And the one thing that I really try not to do is say, you kids, the way you do it today. But here we got Goose Gossage. It's the latest get off my lawn guy. And I'm going to read this. I'm not going to read all the F-bombs. But, Gossage, talking about baseball. It's a joke. The game is becoming a freaking joke because of the nerds who are running it. I tell you what's happened. These guys played rotisserie baseball at Harvard or wherever the F they went. And they thought they figured the effing game out. They don't know it. A bunch of effing nerds running the game. You can't slide into second base. You can't take out the effing catcher because Buster Posey's in the wrong position. And they're trying to change all the rules. You can't pitch inside anymore. I'd like to knock some of them effers on their ass and see how they do against pitchers in the old days. Goose. You have to understand things change. Things don't stay the same. Get over it. The way baseball was is not the way baseball is. You can bitch and moan, but you can't be one of these kids today, and that's exactly what Goose Gossage sounded like.
People who don't like analytics don't understand analytics. All right, that was a lot of fun. Coming up, Big Game Friday with the Blazers and the Warriors, Kansas Baylor, UNC Notre Dame, and we also are going to hit, what's the final one there?
We got another game to hit.
Oregon and Arizona.
We're coming right back here on SportsBit.
All right, we're back for Big Game Friday. Lighting fixed. I can finally read my own writing. Let's start with the big one in the NBA. Revenge spot for the Warriors. Portland against Golden State. Warriors 3, 225 the total. There's the first game. It was +8, and the Blazers won 137-105. Lillard was sensational. He rocked Golden State in a game. He got past their defense the entire game. Was it the best individual game of the year? Look at this graphic. Minutes, 31. Points, 51. Assists, 7. 6 steals. A plus-minus of +28. The equivalent of a 48-minute game is 79 points and +43. If you're able to outscore Golden State by 43 points over 48 minutes, that truly is a special game. And Teddy, back to the revenge angle with Golden State off the loss here against the Blazers.
Yeah, Paul, I gotta save up and try to get you a teleprompter here. Of course, the Warriors 13-point favorites, not 3. You're not reading your handwriting, What
did I say?
13-point chalk for Golden State, not the laying 3 here. But obviously, we don't have teleprompters. We're always going live to tape, so there will inevitably be the verbal typos. But look, let's talk about Golden State in this revenge motif, because we've only seen one Golden State revenge game all year, so far, meaning that they faced an opponent that they lost to in the previous meeting, and that came against the Milwaukee Bucks back on December 18th. Remember, they lost that game in Milwaukee, coming off the double overtime win at Boston. They were gassed the next day. Milwaukee came to town, and everybody was betting Golden State that night. They got bet all the way up to minus 19. Well, they won the game 121-112. They got their revenge, but they never even sniffed a point spread cover. And at 13, man, 13's a lot of points to be given Portland. That being said, you have to think that you're going to get proper focus from Golden State here. We talked about their struggles as double-digit chalk since the All-Star break. But in this instance, this is the type of spot where they're not looking ahead to anything and they're rested. Coming up next, they just have home games against Phoenix and New Orleans on deck. Not exactly look-ahead spots for the Warriors.
I write down 13. I read 3. Incredible. UNC and Notre Dame. North Carolina 7.5, 157.5 the total. 2 coaches here changing their stripes. A different Roy Williams. This time around, he wants to win this sucker and win the ACC tournament. First meeting, Notre Dame plus 2.5 in South Bend. They won 80-76. Carolina led by 10 early in the second half. 11 big turnovers, though, and Notre Dame won despite shooting 3 of 16 from 3. They were 31 of 38 from the free throw line, Teddy. How important and how much will depth matter in this one?
I think it's going to matter a lot, especially when we consider the way that Notre Dame wants to play. And they did it yesterday against Duke. They did it all week in practice when Coach Bray, you made an excellent point at the top. We have 2 coaches that are really changing their stripes. Roy Williams, a guy we've consistently bet against Roy Williams profitably in the ACC tournament. The joke is always that he has a tee time on Saturday. He doesn't want to be playing in the final. That is obviously not the case this year. Meanwhile, Mike Bray, remember when Notre Dame ran like a 4 corners offense a couple of years ago after they lost their leading scorer and they played this incredible slowdown style and forced everyone to their pace? Well, the Fighting Irish all this week, they've been practicing with a 20-second shot clock, meaning push the tempo at every opportunity. Here's a quote from Coach Bray. I think it's very good for Demetrius. That was one of the reasons, of course, Demetrius Jackson, their point guard. That was one of the reasons that I thought we needed to do it to get him moving. Maybe we take some semi-bad shots. I don't care. We're going to go. We're going to roll. It has us playing downhill, and we get some easy buckets in transition instead of playing against a set defense. Now, they had a problem yesterday playing against Duke. They had a season-high 18 turnovers, and they played probably a little bit too fast. But by attacking aggressively, they were able to get the Blue Devils into foul trouble. But, Notre Dame went with a 6-man rotation in that ballgame. Meanwhile, 10 different guys scored for North Carolina in their opener, with Marcus Page at 34 minutes being the only guy to go for more than 29. So Notre Dame may play at tempo here, but you worry about them getting gassed against the depth of UNC in the second half.
Big 12 tournament, the first semifinal. Great matchup, Baylor and Kansas. Kansas 5.5, total of 148. Baylor 0-6 straight up against Kansas, Oklahoma, and West Virginia this year. And is Baylor psyched out by Kansas? Look at this graphic. This is the last 3 years Kansas against Baylor. This year, Kansas was laying 2.5 on the road. They won by 6. They were laying 12 at home. They won 102-74. Last year, conference tournament, 1.5 point favorite, won by 10. At home, laying 7.5, won 74-64. On the road, +3, they won 56-55. And then 2 years ago, on the road, won by 10, laying 4. And at home, laying 10, another easy win. Add it all up, 7-0 straight up, 6-0-1 ATS, the +47.5 ATS, and the average straight up win is over 11 points. Baylor's never been closer than 10 points on the road or in a neutral game setting against Kansas.
Yeah, and again, we're talking about recent seasons, but this doesn't mean that Baylor's a bad team. They just haven't been able to finish against the Kansas defense. And when you look at the numbers in these games consistently, Baylor scoring way below their season averages in game after game against the Jayhawks. I don't know if that changes in another rematch. And when you look at Kansas, as a team that everybody's scared of, that nobody wants to face right now, a team that tends to take this tournament very seriously, even though, Paul, you and I talked about Kansas, maybe this year they don't want to extend themselves all the way in the Big 12 tourney, but you have to think their teamwork really showed on Thursday. 24 assists on 32 made field goals. That's not going to be easy for Baylor to stop. And again, this point spread range is not in a range that Baylor has been in against Kansas on a neutral or road environment in any recent meeting.
Pac-12 semifinal number 1, 6 o'clock here in Las Vegas tonight. Oregon, Arizona, pick 151. All these Arizona fans again in Las Vegas taking over the MGM. But Oregon, it's revenge for both sides here. Oregon, as a 7-point dog, went to the McHale Center and won by 8. Rare that a team does that. But this last year in the championship game, Arizona ran out Oregon 80-52, Teddy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bizarre game because literally both teams are in legitimate revenge. How can two teams be in legitimate revenge at the same time? You know, I mean, it's not often that we see a Pac-12 visitor celebrating at the McHale Center. You know, but Tyler Dorsey and the Ducks certainly got it done in that first meeting this year, 83-75. Remember, they were +7 in that ball game. Now we're projecting the numbers here to be in the pick'em range, total about 151. That's the projected openers. Of course, we will obviously see some movement off of that. But when you look at Arizona saying, hey, this team beat us at home, we're in revenge. Then you have Oregon. I mean, they were really embarrassed in the Pac-12 final last year. I mean, that was a very, very ugly game for the Ducks. And I'd certainly give Oregon credit. Washington really gave them a battle today, and the Ducks made the plays that they had to down the stretch in that ball game. It's worth noting that the win at Arizona was, again, we look at what teams did away from home as the primary indicator for how they're likely to do over the next few weeks in college basketball. Could care less what they did at home. And Arizona wasn't the only Oregon road success. You know, both teams played at the LA schools. Both teams played at the Bay Area schools up in San Fran. And both teams did the Colorado-Utah as well as Arizona State. So when you look at the results of the two teams on the road in those 7 games against the same foes, Oregon wins the comparison by about 25 points. So advantage Ducks, at least when we're looking in the rearview mirror.
Good job. You don't need a prompter at all. Deep dive, topic of the day up next. NFL free agency, what we thought of some of the big moves, how did the markets react, and we look to finish out the week perfect with play of the day. That's coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today. Time for the deep dive and topic of the day, NFL free agency, all the moves the last few days. Man, are the Broncos in trouble. They lose Trevathan, Jackson, Manning, Osweiler, C.J. Anderson signed an offer sheet yesterday with Miami. They have to match that or they could lose him. And now Osweiler goes to Houston for $18 million a year. And for Elway, the notion of a second Super Bowl trophy is a long ways away, Teddy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look at the quote. John Elway, we stayed true to our philosophy of building a team with players who want to be Denver Broncos and want to be here. That's been a successful approach for us. In other words, don't expect a repeat Super Bowl title. We had a moment of silence on yesterday's SportsBit talking about their quarterback situation. And I don't worry about the running backs. For God's sakes, don't worry about the running backs. C.J. Anderson is very replaceable.
Well, they could lose Hillman, too.
Doesn't matter. Running backs are a dime a dozen.
That's 4 guys you're going to have to replace right there. 2 quarterbacks.
Now losing your entire offensive backfield is another story. And, of course, they've had significant losses on the defensive side of the football at all. But it has certainly not been a good start to free agency for Denver. But that's nothing compared to what we're going to talk about with Cleveland.
Oh, this might be the worst organization in sports. Guys are just getting the hell out of there.
Of course they are.
Oh, my God. They couldn't wait to leave.
Yeah. Poor Hugh Jackson. And I like Hugh Jackson. I liked him as an offense coordinator. I think he's a good person. And I think that he has the potential to be a good head coach. Look at the Raiders. Remember, he had 1 year as a head coach in Oakland, and Oakland was going through a decade of futility. The 1 year Hugh Jackson was their coach, they finished 500. But, they had 4 key free agents: Alex Mack, Mitchell Schwartz, Travis Benjamin, Tayshaun Gibson. All 4 of them said, bye-bye. No, we don't want your offer. We don't want your money. We'd rather go elsewhere. It's pretty ugly in Cleveland, and it's not getting any better. I cashed a ticket on the Browns under their season win total last year, and I would expect more of the same this season.
How about we could have a bidding war over Ryan Fitzpatrick? Are you serious? This guy could get 16, 17, 18 million a year, and he's had, I don't know, what, 1.5, 2 good years? That's going to be crazy.
Yeah, the thing that surprised me is when you think about a guy like Chase Daniel, who signed, just went to Philly to back up Bradford. And I love the signing for Philadelphia. But why doesn't Daniel, there's so many teams looking for quarterbacks. Why does he even get a chance to be a starter somewhere? When again, the high-profile offensive skill position players are going to get the headlines, Paul. If you ask me what the big moves are, Kalichi Osemele from Baltimore to Oakland. Huge deal for the Raiders. Offensive lineman. Alex Boone going from San Francisco to Minnesota. Huge deal for the Vikings. Alex Mack, starting center in Atlanta now instead of being in Cleveland. These are massive deals on the offensive line, and that's where titles are won, in the trenches. Well, that and at the quarterback position.
How about what the Giants did? They spent over $100 million on 2 defensive ends who've combined for 3 double-digit sack seasons. They gave Vernon $85 million. They re-upped JPP, and then they gave Jenkins $12 million a year. Oh, man, by the time they spent money on defense, but some of these contracts are crazy.
You'd say they're crazy, but I have to disagree with that. The salary cap keeps going up, and when the salary cap goes up, you can afford to pay guys. Steve Spagnuolo, look at this picture. He's happy already. The defensive players don't get the buzz of the offensive players, but the Giants defense just got a massive upgrade that's going to make them a better team. And if Spagnuolo can't coax more wins out of this defense and the team that kept on losing close games last year, there's, something seriously wrong, although, I'm not a big Spagnuolo fan. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, so Houston gets Osweiler. The Giants spend all that money and get 3 talented defensive guys, or at least 2, and re-up JPP. And the Broncos lose Manning and Osweiler. What'd the marketplace do?
Well, that's the funny thing about the marketplace, is that the marketplace really doesn't go nuts off the initial free agent signing, because there are basically two main points I want to make here. The markets are going to move. We would expect Houston to take some money over the course of the next few days / few weeks. I would expect the Giants to take some money over the next few days. In terms of season wins, in terms of odds to win the Super Bowl, the Texans got better, the Giants got better, the Raiders got better, and that's very clear. Those are 3 teams that I expect will draw some support. But you cannot look at free agency in a vacuum, Paulie. Only when the draft is done can you fully assess a team's offseason. And again, it's also very important to remember, it's not necessarily the big headline guys that make the difference. You could fill 8 rosters with free agent busts over the last 20 years. Far fewer rosters with difference makers who helped a team immediately. Think about the impactful free agent signings last year. Who had the biggest impact? Michael Orr and Ted Ginn Jr. for Carolina, neither of which was a move that got lauded by anybody in the slightest. So it's not always the splashy moves that make the big difference.
All right. Play of the day. Money time. Let's finish out the week with a perfect record. We're going back to North Carolina, Notre Dame, over 157.5. We're at our best when we're down 16 in the second half, baby. That's when we come alive, all right? So we expect both teams to be in attack mode right away. Push it, over the total, 157.5. And let's do it again with the play of the day. Fun week, Teddy, and when we come back Monday, we'll know the brackets, who's playing who got in, who got snubbed. I can't wait.
Oh, yeah, Monday's going to be a great show. Be sure to tune in. It's worth noting, though, for that Notre Dame, North Carolina over recommendation, $157.5. That's a projected number, and it's important. That's going to get bet up. All right, if you like this total, and we do, bet it sooner rather than later. Check back on Monday for a Sportsbet. In the meantime, have yourselves a wonderful weekend. May all the winners be yours.